Holodeck 3 program is reinstated.
Open sesame!
Commander Klingon vessel. We are energizing transporter beam. Now.
Warp 1, engage!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Star Trek from the Holodeck, the Discovery Edition. Yes, indeed. I am Michael Flores, your host, your captain, your Lorca, your lover, your Saru. Whatever you want me to be, I will be that for you. And at the helm in the studio with me is David Sabal. Hello, Dave.
I don't know if you want to be Lorca. Maybe Saru. Saru came out really well this episode, I have to say.
I don't want to be eaten, though. I don't want to be eaten. I will not be somebody's cultural delicacy dish.
Is your ganglia shaking?
Yes, it shakes a lot, especially around Tilly. Of course. All right, so today we're going to be breaking down Star Trek Discovery Season 1, Episode 13. What's past is prologue, and I do, in fact, love the poetry behind that title.
The titles of that they've been giving all the episodes to have been really good.
Yeah.
They really do add something. Adding all the titles have added something to the show.
I'm a stickler for that, and I think I said that a few shows back. I'm definitely a stickler for those poetic titles where there is a much deeper meaning. So when there's some actual thought into putting together your titles, I feel like that's a reflection of the amount of thought and effort that went into the episode itself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so this episode was directed by Altunde Asusanami.
Hope you said that right. You said it better than I did.
I don't know if that's English or Filipino or Klingon. I'm not quite sure. Written by Ted Sullivan.
That's a little simpler.
Yes, thank you. White males. I can definitely pronounce their names. Very easy. Lorca plans to move forward with a coup against the Emperor, propelling Burnham to make a quick decision to save not only herself, but the crew of the USS Discovery. Now, this was an action-packed episode with a cinematic flair.
Oh, dude, yeah.
I mean, it felt like I was watching a Star Trek film. Had a bit of the science fiction babble, the sci-fi babble mixed with intense sequence of action, which I like that. I like that mixture. I think we can go hardcore techno babble with a little bit of action, right? There's nothing wrong with
absolutely.
That.
This is what Star Trek's all about. I mean, when you take a look at like the past movies, the good movies of Star Trek, they mix their techno babble with the action, and it's something that I have never seen a lot of sci-fi shows and movies try to duplicate, but they can't do it like Star Trek can.
No. And this is making me a little afraid. There is something that I feel could go terribly wrong with the way they're doing the Star Trek Discovery series. This is not a negative about the show. This is a potential pitfall that the Star Trek franchise might end up falling into. Because this is shot in such a way that it has that cinematic flair. It looks a lot like a movie. It feels like a movie. It's written a lot like a movie. Yes, it has the individual act structure that you need to have per episode, but as a whole, it feels like an ongoing film with each subsequent episode being simply a sequel. Is this going to create issues moving forward with Star Trek movies? Because Star Trek movies have always been the reprieve from the normal. It's been an epic occasion because, okay, we got the budget, we got the big ships, we got this so-and-so actor here doing this, we got these types of villains, and Star Trek Discovery is doing all those things. They're satisfying not only the Star Trek hunger-craved fans, but also those of us who miss the movies.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to end up hurting the franchise in the long run? Because is the movie still going to be a special occasion, Dave?
That's the thing. I mean, like nowadays, I'm starting to think like what you're talking about, where basically when a Star Trek movie comes out, it was awesome. It was gangbusters. It was like, everyone got hyped about it and
high about it as well.
Exactly. And then like nowadays, especially with how streaming television is going and the quality that it's actually increasing, it's catching up to that cinema quality.
Exactly.
And it's like going to the theaters now is kind of like they have to find something to actually make going to theaters really special.
Yeah. And it's a valid point, Dave. Maybe this isn't just a Star Trek problem. Maybe this is a television film industry problem where we're getting a lot of these high-end, high-production style shows nowadays on television that it's maybe reducing the urgency to go buy that movie ticket for $13 a pop.
And if you think about it too, I mean, like, look how much storytelling we can get out of like a series that spans like how many episodes is Discovery going for right now? It's going for,
I want to say 15 episodes.
15 episodes. So 15 episodes worth of Discovery, and you're getting this excellent storytelling in this, and it's incredibly well paced, and it doesn't feel like it's dragging. And when I go to movies nowadays, it seems like movies have to be really fast, and like the storytelling has to be really sparse. And it's like, it goes back to like, discussions me and you have had on other shows about like why nowadays like comic book movies are just not a thing anymore. There's nothing special about them, and it's partly because the storytelling in those comic book movies are so shallow, it doesn't make it feel special. And
it's definitely worthy of a deeper discussion for sure. I don't feel like we have time for it in this particular show. However, moving forward, that may be something that you and I want to put on the docket for one of our Patreon shows.
It wouldn't be bad.
Talking about the pros and cons of this era of television and the high production value and what it means for the future movies.
Absolutely. Because like in regards to Star Trek, it's kind of like, okay, how do you actually tell I think me and you can both agree that the story and the writing for Discovery could not be told in a film. I don't think it could, because of so much that they're trying to actually tell.
You're right with the deep development that we're getting on many of our characters. Absolutely. And if they were to attempt it, it would be even more of a focus on a tighter focus on Burnham or our subsequent leads.
Yeah, I think we would miss out on other characters.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's move into our discussion with this episode this week. All right, so what do we know so far, Dave? Lorca is dead. We finally got to witness Michelle Yeoh in all her glory as a martial arts expert. That's something,
was cool.
Something I've been waiting for, because I am a huge Asian film cinema buff. I love the Asian cinema. I mean, ever since the early 90s, I've been all about it, especially those martial art films. Why I love I love the idea of putting Michelle Yeoh in this show, and I was hoping they utilized that, because a lot of people may not realize that her background is martial arts. When she started to make her U.S. breakout, becoming that breakout international star, she was promoted in the mid-90s as the female Jackie Chan.
Yes.
I remember when her first movie that came into the States, that's what was all over it. That's what hit all the trades. Everybody was talking about it. The interwebs, everything. It was the female Jackie Chan. And I was one of those individuals that was sold on it and said, hey, I love Jackie Chan. Not a big fan of Jackie Chan's American work, but his Asian international films signed me up for every one of those.
Oh, absolutely. I'm also in that boat. I'm even more so because
you're Asian.
I'm Asian.
Is that racist?
And I grew up on that Hong Kong film scene and everything else. So the fact that Michelle Yeoh was was cast in a Star Trek show, I was in the back of my mind, I'm like going, are they going to have her fight? Because I want to see her fight. Now she is getting up there in age and everything.
Come on.
No, she is. I mean, I think the last great action
Asians,
movie.
we already know Asians don't age the same way as the rest of the human race.
Yeah, but we move a little slower.
I don't know. Your brother's almost 70 and he moves like a 40-year-old. So, all right. So I'm glad you and I are on the same page with her. It was fun to see her be able to move around. Yes, it wasn't the walking on walls that she's done in the
like
past.
Crouching
in the 90s.
Tiger, Hidden Dragon and stuff like that.
Right. So yes, they didn't go all crazy, which I would have also, if they did that though, it would have felt very different than Star Trek. They kind of would have taken us out, I think, of the story. So it was more subtle, but it was nice knowing that was probably her doing a lot of that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt that was probably all her.
Did you notice there was a very distinct style to her fighting as well? Very different than everyone else. And that's why I got excited. And I'm going to delve into the stunt aspects, I think, on our next show when I have time to research it, because I want to find out how much she actually did on her own and how much she ended up relying on, say, the stunt coordinator. And I know sometimes they don't even have a decision. A lot of times with American television, specifically, lower budget things, which CBS All Access isn't ABC. It isn't the CBS platform flagship network. They're probably going to have slightly different rules when it comes to budget and insurance. A lot of times actors, even if they're able, aren't allowed due to insurance reasons. They don't want to run the risk of them getting hurt, and then there's a lawsuit, and then they lose their star.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a big thing.
Yeah, so I'm going to do some research, and I'm going to find out whether or not she was all up in it, if that was in fact her or not. Also this week, Saru has fallen into the position of captain, and he's doing a damn good job, David.
Dude, that monologue he gave was cool. That's captain's worthy.
It's Star Trek-esque.
It's Star Trek-esque.
And I was very happy to see that, especially because he's a character that struggles with self-esteem and his worthiness because of being a prey species. And specifically, if you read the prequel novel as well, they delve into that inferiority complex that he has and the insecurities and the self-esteem issues. And they delved into it a bit with the earlier episodes, but it was nice to see him kind of get his due as well. So we're going to get into that as well.
And you know what made that really special? You do realize if they continue that trend of Saru taking that captain's mantle, he's going to be the first alien to ever be a captain.
I'm going to call it now, but let's save that for later in the show after our first break.
Yeah.
But yes, once again, Dave, you and I are on the exact same page. All right. Discovery and her crew is back in the Alpha Quadrant, but they overshot by 9 months, and the Klingons have won the war. How the fuck? Okay, how does this affect Star Trek canon? That's the first question I had. Does this mess up anything that has been established as canon, or is this an area that's been kind of shrouded in darkness and mystery that they can kind of stretch their legs a bit in this area? Is there room to explore this type of scenario? And how is it going to be fixed? Or are they just going to go with it that this actually happened in the Prime universe?
That's what I was like trying to figure out by the end. I'm like going, did they just change history?
Yeah.
Again?
Yeah. Well, I guess we're going to find out. I feel like there's not enough information yet, but we're going to delve into that a little bit deeper as well after our first break. These are all things we're going to get into. A lot has transpired in just a few short episodes. And we've got, I believe, 2 episodes remaining. But before we continue, there is a bit of news that I'd like to get into pertaining to Trek's relevance and viewership. Okay, now this article is taken from Forbes.com, and they do a lot of analysis into TV and movies pertaining to the money aspect, which would make sense. We're dealing with Forbes here. And the specific article has more to do with the battle between Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon, and it goes into a discussion about which one's growing faster, and they talk about Hulu having like a 42% increase over the past 2 years, And then they bring in CBS All Access into the equation, and it may raise some eyebrows, David. And this actually made me feel good about the show, okay? About what's happening and the potential future of Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek as a whole, because it is tracking phenomenal on social media, okay? And there's some pros and there's some cons with that. And we're going to get into it right now, okay? All right, so Forbes.com, Hulu is gaining on Netflix, but Star Trek Discovery is unstoppable. Is an unstoppable monster, they said. So what's interested me, though, is the Star Trek Discovery demand expressions, this article says, or better known as the number of people talking about a show. According to Parrot Analytics video below, Star Trek Discovery has more than 53 million people talking about it in the United States.
And this is what I honestly think Star Trek needed.
53 million people are talking about Star Trek Discovery, and then they compare it to The Walking Dead, which has around 46 million. Netflix's Stranger Things also has a staggering 33 million. All right, so for a show like coming from CBS All Access, which is a digital streaming platform that doesn't benefit necessarily from the successes of its main sister channel, I would call it, CBS, the network itself, 53 million people. Now, one might say, well, does that mean there's 53 million subscribers to CBS All Access? Because that's fucking huge.
That's huge.
But I don't think it means that. It means that there's probably like 5 million subscribers, and the rest of y'all motherfuckers are pirating this shit. Because there's no way. If CBS All Access had 53 million subscribers, we would be hearing about it. They would be pounding their chest. They'd be, crowing like roosters, saying, oh yeah, look at us. And I haven't heard anything from the financial sector. In fact, this is the first article I've read that goes into the 53 million aspect. Now, just because they're not getting those subscribers, I feel like that the fact that there's 53 million people talking about it is still a good thing.
Yes.
That's nothing to frown at or shrug off. You want people talking about your show. And also take into account, Dave, that this is, 53 million people in the United States as well. So some people may say, well, what about the Space Channel in Canada? What about the Netflix viewers across the world? Because that's how Europe, that's how 75-80% of the rest of the audience watches the show. It's only on CBS All Access here in the US. So if there's 53 million people talking about this just in the United States, David, then what does that mean for the entire bulk sum of individuals talking about this show across the world? I like this. I'm happy about it, because even if there is some naysayers out there, it seems like a lot of people are being won over. There are complaints, and there's always going to be complaints. That's just what people do. But to see that the show has 53 million people talking about it, that's a win. Oh, and that's the type of win you do brag about. Wouldn't you agree, Dave?
No, I agree with that, because this is what, honestly, Star Trek was, ever since we began this show, Star Trek, we said Star Trek was in a point where it was getting stagnant.
Yeah.
And
at 53 million, that's no longer stagnant.
That's no longer stagnant. And that opens doors and opportunities for now the franchise that we love.
And helps panties drop. I mean, those are panty dropping numbers.
Exactly. And
then 53 million. You drop my panties.
But literally everyone has wondered, is Star Trek going to die? And I'm obviously from this vantage point, it's not going to die anytime soon.
Dude, they're in a good place.
They're in a good place. They're even in a really good place to do a restart of the franchise.
Because look at it like this, Dave. Let's say there's not 53 million people, and CBS All Access has not released their numbers yet. Now, most streaming services do not release their data for obvious reasons. However, let's say they have 10 million subscribers and that's it. Or let's say they have 3 or 4. And yes, one would think, well, that's how they're making their money. Yes, absolutely. And also they have some commercials that run through it as well. But look at the longevity of what $53 million would do for merchandising.
Oh, absolutely.
That's where they're going to make their money, on the ancillary markets, the ancillary revenue streams. Discovery merchandise, Discovery shirts, Discovery clothing, Discovery, books. This is how they're going to make their money off this show and off the people pirating it. Yes, the 53 million people, or let's say 27 million people are pirating it. They're not going to go out there and buy stuff. But if you can get 25% of 53 million to buy merchandise, again, that's a lot of dollars.
That's a lot of dollars.
This is positive. This is actually a good thing.
This is a very good thing for the series because now, but the big question that kind of ties into what me and you were alluding to in the very beginning of the show is like, how does this affect the movies? Because like, we all love the movies. I still like going to the movies and seeing a Star Trek film, but now are they going to actually stop doing a Star Trek films now? Because what's the point? What would be the point?
Yeah. I don't think they're going to stop doing movies, but you're going to see gimmicks like the Tarantino decision.
Oh yeah.
That's how they're going to win people over and making Star Trek relevant. They're going to continue to use the J.J. Abrams and the Tarantinos, and that's a topic for another show. I don't have a problem with it as long as it feels like Star Trek. You got to do what you got to do to keep your franchise alive. So, you know what? On that note, Dave, we do need to go to a very quick break, but then when we get back, you and I are going to jump into the rest of this episode. We'll be right back.
Double dumbass on you! Fire everything!
The Rain Man Show. The Rain Man Show.
The 27-year-old Natasha West flipped out at a Denny's restaurant after the waitress told her she couldn't share her $4 all-you-can-eat flapjacks with the other people at the table.
Would it matter?
Well, she can't share her all-you-can-eat meal. You'd have to buy a meal for everybody, I'm assuming.
Police said West became irate and started swearing and swinging her fists at the server.
You don't tell me what to do.
According to NBC Chicago.
I want my flapjacks. I'm going to eat my whole family to eat these flapjacks. Don't you tell me. Don't tell me what to do. I'm going to eat these flapjacks with syrup.
Just saying, when somebody's already...
peach jam. And I'm going to get your little Tyrone right next to me. He's going to eat some flapjacks too because we're hungry. We're hungry.
That's all you can eat.
Yeah, it's all you can eat. It doesn't say all I can eat. It's all you can eat.
For more Rain Man, visit RainManShow.com.
All right, want more Star Trek from the Holodeck? Go to patreon.com/RainManDigital to pledge. And when you pledge $5 or more a month, you gain access to hours of additional content. That's right, David. Did you know that?
Oh, it is a very logical choice.
Star Trek discussions up your ass. Well, not up your ass, but if you that's actually extra money. If you want.
That has to be extra.
Yeah.
Extra.
Yeah. However, lots of additional discussions ranging from topics on Q, the Mirror Universe, Borg, and so much more. Same thing we do here, but more of it. Head over to patreon.com/RainManDigital to pledge. Start listening. Get some more Star Trek in your ear holes.
Remember, live long and prosper.
It's Weird West Sunday.
So the first thing I look at is, okay, if you're doing a Western and your inspiration is the surrealism of Sergio Leone, then you better have your panels drawn in such a way that it resembles the work of Leone. Mm-hmm. I mean, Sergio Leone was known during a time when anamorphing was being used. Comic book pages of Pretty Deadly is you saw those mimicking images. And I'm not talking just the wide screen style shots, but also just the depth of field and making sure certain elements should stay in focus. Emma Rio studied and did her homework when she got down to doing this comic book.
Yeah, she did a great job.
I think going down the path and kind of creating their own lore. They created their own lore. Mm-hmm. I think it leaves more room for mystery and more room for creativity and originality.
Well, and like this one, I don't think they threw that so much into your face either.
Yeah.
the Christianity or paganism or anything like that. It was, if you read it like I kind of read it.
Catch up on your favorite Weird West discussions from Mike and Clint every Sunday on Rain Man Channel 001. Listen from the Rain Man digital app or tune in. Just search RM Channel 001.
Have you ever wanted something so bad that you do just about anything for it? Well, that's exactly how we feel about you. That's right. AdamandEve.com wants you so bad. We're giving you 10 free gifts with your first order. You heard me right. That's 10 free gifts to spice up your love life. First, you'll get a sexy surprise for her. Second, an adventurous toy for him. And third, a little something we know you'll both enjoy. Plus, you'll get 6 full-length adult movies on DVD. And number 10, free shipping on your entire order. That's 10 free gifts for you shy types who've never tried Adam and Eve before. Just go to AdamandEve.com and select any one item. It could be an adventurous new toy, a sexy piece of lingerie, or anything you desire. Just enter offer code DEAL30 at checkout, and you'll get all 10 free gifts, including free shipping. That's offer code DEAL30. That's DEAL30 at AdamandEve.com.
Energize.
We're back. All right, so today we're going to be breaking down Star Trek Discovery, Season 1, Episode 13. What's Past is Prologue. All right, so Lorca, oh, my show notes disappeared. All right, Lorca plans to move forward with a coup against the Emperor, propelling Burnham to make a quick decision to save not only herself, but the USS Discovery. All right, so Dave, I'm hoping you did your homework this week.
I did.
Let's just start with it. Let's start with that. As we have said last couple weeks, we wanted to always have at least that one portion of the show where we put a little emphasis on the academic merits of the show, because there's a lot.
There's a lot.
And we could do another companion piece to this show just on the technical aspects, but we don't have time for that. So my cinematography shot of the week is the one where Burnham finds Giorgio alone, and you have that table split into halves by a long line. There's like a white light or some type of design on the table that keeps them separate. And now my interpretation of the framing was that you have two people from different worlds connected by destiny, the table symbolizing the joining or commonality, and the line that separates the table into halves that signifies the differences in their ideology. I mean, it was amazing. I loved it. It was gorgeous. All right, what's yours?
Mine is the hallway scene where Giorgio gets led into the trap by Lorca. That scene right there was really good and really well done. And I think one of the things that really I took away from that was the one thing that everyone thinks, it's a very minute detail to the viewer, but if you know filmmaking, it is extremely hard to do this shot, is the whole lights appearing in the darkness. That is incredibly difficult to pull off, because even I, as long as I've been a filmmaker, I've always wanted to do that shot where basically it's pitch black, the person comes in, and all of a sudden specks of light just start showing up. And it boggles my mind that basically how difficult to get that shot to work. Because you either light it too much, or you don't light it enough.
It's not as easy as one would think.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
And like I took that, I watched that scene and I'm like going, it kept reminding me that basically a lot of viewers kind of like don't know how much work goes into setting up a shot like that.
Yeah, it was good. And you're right about that shot. Yes, it's probably commonplace nowadays for those experienced cinematographers, but that doesn't mean it doesn't take some effort to get it. I mean, with today's high def cameras, it is a bit easier to get a scene exposed with not a lot of light. However, in the days of film, you would have to have a very high
so hard
film speed. So, I mean, and it isn't easy. You run the risk of having lots of grain, but chances are what they did was they obviously lit it. You always light the scene, even if you want black, you light it in some way, and then you just crush the blacks in editing and you bring it down so that when you have your final render and it goes out to wherever your distro, you now have a shot that looks exactly like we saw. But you're right. It's pretty fantastic.
And dude, every single time I do like a filmmaking seminar thing, someone brings up that question. How do I do a shot where in a darkened room?
You light it. But
there's it's not lit.
But there's no lights. I'm like, there are.
There are.
Yeah, it's funny when people don't get that.
But, yeah, it's
normies.
Amazing.
Normies.
Normies.
They don't understand the fine art of filming.
Normies.
We sound like douches. All right, let's move past this.
I don't mind.
Lorca is dead. We find out how he arrived in the Prime Universe. It was similar to Kirk's.
Yes, that was funny. That was actually made me chuckle.
Yeah. Due to a transporter accident, and was not due to MU Stamets working on a way to get Lorca there for whatever reason. I know that's what I believe. I kind of theorized that MU Stamets and Lorca were working together. And
those damn ion storms, dude. Ion storms everywhere.
I was okay with that aspect. But I do got to be honest, Dave. And I was kind of hesitant on whether or not I should include that because, this is a fan show of sorts, but we also want to be fair and talk about the things that the pros and cons.
Yeah.
But honestly, I feel like this might have been the show's first mistake. Lorca dying was not the problem, though.
No.
It was that we didn't learn much about what drove him. And I said that last week. I said, all right, whatever happens to Lorca's fine. I'm okay with him being from the alternate universe this entire time. I thought the twist was cool. But let's not just make him a barbarian, Yahoo who has a very one-dimensional goal. And it's to conquer the Emperor. And that's it. Give him some dynamics, give him some development and multiple layers. And I feel like they went the route of simplicity. Yeah. It was a one-dimensional and flat. And I don't feel like they intended that to begin with because we had the entire season. We've had a Lorca that was multi-layered, a guy who was interesting. There was a certain amount of intrigue. There was intrigue due to the mysterious nature of who he is and what he's about. And we never learned very much about him other than the fact that he had his sights on the Imperial seat. And that's fine. I get it. And that's the archetype of the Terran Empire.
Yes.
They are one-dimensional. They seem to have the drive, power is their only drive. And I can get behind that. But Star Trek Discovery has changed things from what we usually expect. I expect more from them now because they've given us these characters right off the bat that are multi-layered and very intricate characters, and the characterizations of them are very deep. I feel like we were owed much more with Lorca than simply writing him off as a barbarian of sorts.
Exactly, and especially my takeaway was I disappointed with how they finished up Lorca's story? Yes. I understand that basically since the very beginning we've been given these little tidbits of knowledge that Lorca, the thing that makes Lorca deep is his belief that in destiny, and basically there is no such thing as mirror universes and multi-universes to him because it's all about destiny. Destiny will always converge. And the thing I was disappointed in was they hammered that home in so much this way that it kind of made him more stereotypical. So by the end of it, it was kind of like, okay, that was Lorca as a whole. He was he was the atypical Terran officer that was looking to overthrow the Emperor, and he believed that he was destined to do this. Okay. But man, I really was hoping they would continue him on. And I'll be honest, it's because I like Jason Isaacs so much that he made Lorca so
all right
likable.
Yes, Dave, and I agree with you. But don't discredit your thoughts on it because of your like for Jason Isaacs. Because you're right, everything you said is right. but don't discredit the value of what you're saying and your opinion due to the fact that, oh, it's just because I like Jason Isaacs, maybe. No, it's not. Because I do my best not to allow my own fan wants to interfere a discussion or a review.
Yeah.
That's not the way you do things when you discuss something like this type of show. We got to be able to take a step back and look at it objectively.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, though, with Jason Isaacs. I love him as an actor. He's one of the biggest reasons why I was really enthusiastic about this show, despite the fact that we're getting Star Trek back. And I know he was never intended to be the focus of the show. He was supporting cast, and I get that as well. And I'm okay. I'm okay with him dying. I feel, though, that there was a lot of setting him up in a certain way, and then they didn't really fulfill it. And yes, we have 2 more episodes, and we may learn more. We don't know.
The thing is, too, is like, okay, my main question that I got out of this was, okay, this Lorca died, right? What happened to the other Lorca? Because there has to be the other Lorca.
I feel like that's a question for another time.
Yeah.
Because I'm less interested in the Prime Lorca at this point, and more interested in the Lorca we've known
the Terran Lorca for
the past 13 episodes or so. I mean, we've never learned why he cared for Burnham. There was, was it a mutual respect? Was it love? Was it sexual? Why did he care so much about Burnham? He says he saw something great in her, and we get this idea of their intertwined destinies, and they had a similar resolve. But what was that resolve? They dumbed it down to taking over the throne or the imperial seat.
Yeah.
But they alluded to much more. They went even as far as to have Burnham say at the end of the episode, when she was trying to trick him, Lorca, she stated, "I will stay here with you. You will have my mind, nothing else."
Nothing else.
So are they trying to allude that they did have a non-platonic relationship, that there was some type of, love there of some sorts, at least from Lorca's side? I mean, I felt that he cared about her. As you go back and look at all the times he didn't want nothing happening to her, it was more than just needing her to get through the door.
Yes.
To get after Georgiou. Because even after he conquered her, he still wanted her to join him. So what was it? What was it? And then he dies, and we don't learn what it was. We keep hearing Burnham is this, Burnham is that. But why? Why is she this? Why is she that? What makes her still unique? And I know the very beginning, they kind of alluded to the fact that the reason why she's unique is the whole idea behind how she grew up.
Yes.
A child of 2 worlds, being human, but learning the Vulcan ideology. And that makes her kind of a unique asset on board a ship, or in the case of Georgiou, makes her, it's going to end in a tragic ending for Georgiou.
Apparently, yeah.
So I felt like they dropped the ball when it came to the final moments of Lorca's existence on the show.
Yes.
I
do agree with you.
I feel like it really fell into a weird area.
But it didn't ruin the episode, though. I still say
it didn't ruin it, Dave. But when you have a dynamic actor like Jason Isaacs, and you turn his character from a mysterious, multifaceted character into something so simplistic, it's just a bit disappointing.
It's disappointing. Yeah.
I did like, though, David, trying to regain some positivity here, Dave.
Positive. I know.
I did like how the Star Trek writers called out the childish idealism
yes.
of the Federation via Lorca, because the idea of like a utopian socialist society has always seemed laughable to me. It's never going to happen. It would never happen. Or in a lot of ways, we get this ultimate villain of sorts, the antagonist, the Borg, who think all one. There's not a lot of free thought, but when you really look at what socialistic utopians are,
yeah, they're pretty much the Borg.
Yeah, it's like one idea. The ideology is just across the board. Everyone feels the same way. There's no longer self-interest per se. So I kind of liked it, and I don't know if that was their intended purpose I feel possibly their intended purpose was probably a little more politically charged, but still, I felt like it said something bigger as well at the same time.
Honestly, this is a big thing in Star Trek just recently that I've noticed in a lot of Star Trek forums and fan bases that I listen to and I actually interact with. One of the biggest things by far was the whole thing that a lot of older Star Trek fans like the idealism of Gene Roddenberry.
Yeah, no, and don't get me wrong, David. We've talked about this in other shows. I like how it works within Star Trek and how it is the glue that keeps Star Trek together. I like that. But at the same time, when you look at it through realistic lenses,
exactly.
You realize that it's very, very, very unrealistic.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the one thing that basically is interesting nowadays. Because I pick up a lot of Star Trek philosophy books. And one of the things that is always a core thing is that debate of the utopian society that Gene Roddenberry dreams of. Is it possible? And people say in realism, it doesn't. It can't exist.
You'll never get somebody to think and feel and be okay with the same. No, we're never all going to be the same.
And the thing was, the reason why I'll
tell you what, I'm not going to ever fly in a fucking starship without getting paid.
Not getting paid.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sacrifice myself just to go up into the stars.
Yeah. I mean, well, Michael, we'll pay you through, holodeck credits. We'll let you have fantasies in the holodeck. Like, okay, sign me up.
Here's a couple of holodeck programs you've requested.
Yes. To Paul. A little bit of Captain Killy. Perhaps that chick with the cyborg eye and the shaved head and Discovery. I might add her to my holodeck fantasy.
See, but like the whole thing.
Hey, don't mess up my fantasy. Hold on, David. What are you doing? 7 of 9.
Deanna Troi.
Guess what? Give me 7 of 9. Deanna Troi to Paul, the chick with the shaved head. Throw in the robotic chick as well. And sign me up for a socialist society. I'm here.
I'm here. But it's like the thing that I read recently in an actual book that was really interesting is the fact that what Gene Roddenberry really is after is almost kind of like Camelot. When you look at the Arthurian legends and stuff, it's Camelot.
Absolutely.
And we all understand that Camelot cannot exist because we're human.
I thought it did exist. That's not history?
No, because like remember in the very end, Camelot fell.
I'm joking, dude.
Exactly.
All right, so let's move on. So the idea, getting back to this, the childish idealism, the idea of the Federation and the ingredients that keep it together is unique. I like that, and the twines of destiny that help keep it together. So I do like that they're showing the differences between a universe that can't understand it, and then a universe who can't understand you not being a part of it or not wanting it. So I like that. And I do like the idea that for the most part, this idealism is unique to this universe. Obviously, we have the split timeline now, the Kelvin timeline. However, I like the differences and showing that this is a unique idea, that all the right ingredients were there at the same time for the Federation to be a thing and Starfleet.
Yes.
I also like that it could possibly, and tell me if you didn't see the same thing. I also saw that there might have been a little bit of, with Lorca's final words about childish idealism, was there possibly a little bit of foreshadowing of how weak the Federation becomes years later?
That's an interesting point, yeah.
Because did this utopian society truly work? When we saw the failure, when we take into account the movie, the final Next Generation film, Nemesis.
Yeah.
And how Patrick Stewart's double, I forgot the Shinzon. When Shinzon used that, the Dominion War, the Borg, everybody's come out the woodwork. You now are a fledgling government entity that no longer wields the power or the prestige that you once had. I felt like there might have been a little bit of foreshadowing there.
There is.
Of things to come with Lorca's little words.
There is. When you take a look at it, I mean, especially like with a lot of Star Trek, it is really hard to get behind that childlike fantasy of great peaceful world.
Yeah.
All of us want it through realism. If you're being realistic and mature,
right.
When you think on a mature level, you realize that basically stuff like that is nice to idealize, but it can never come to fruition.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right. So standout moment for me this week was Saru.
Oh, yeah.
I think he might have been my absolute favorite part. This is a character that I was kind of alluding to this topic at the top of the show. This has been a character that has been a bit insecure at times. And to see his confidence build as the episodes go by, the prey species becoming an alpha of sorts is a cool display of the flipping of fates. Kind of going against almost the polar opposite of what the MU universe is. And a part of me, again, feels like the writers should have allowed Saru to see it. Imagine how powerful that would have been for Saru. What a turning point for him. And it would have helped this moment be even that more emotional.
More powerful.
Because when he took control of the crew and he became the captain and he was making the hard decisions and it was so, the writers did such a great job with that scene. It was definitely the highlight for me. But imagine how much more impactful that would have been if Saru would have known what the Kelpians were in this universe, in the MU universe. I think it would have been even that much more impactful. Do you agree with that?
No, I agree. I agree that the reason why it's so powerful for us is because we know what the Kelpians are in the mirror universe. I do really think that basically they should. That's why, in a lot of ways, I understand it story-wise why Burnham didn't want to tell Saru.
Yeah. I know. I understand from her standpoint.
From her standpoint, especially since, hey, I just ate you.
Oh, Dave.
She did. She picked him. If you think about it, she picked him. Well, she ended up eating him.
Wow.
So
that is so sick.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So I agree with you though that basically I wish Saru would have actually been more engaged in the mirror universe. To maybe that entire scene would have been more galvanizing.
This is where they could take those extra 10 minutes that we were talking about last week, where we were hoping the Star Trek Discovery wouldn't necessarily stick to the 45 minute format of regular television when there's no real commercials they have to worry about.
Yeah.
Give us those extra 5 to 10 minutes that you have, extend your running time, and give us a little bit more. But I mean, that being said, I don't think it lost anything. No. The Saru moment was good. And as I was saying, it was a nice display of the flipping of fates and also a subtle way to support Burnham's rejection of her destiny as Lorca was using to kind of win her over. So I like that.
If you want to, the thing too that I really dug about the Saru moment, it really is, we just talked about how that childlike fantasy of Gene Roddenberry's socialism and all that stuff we were just talking about a second ago. Saru becoming a prey species, from a prey species to a captain. That's pretty much there with Gene Roddenberry's, that's what makes Star Trek feel good, is like rising above, all doing something that basically we're not meant to do. And honestly, dude, that whole scene with Saru, I would put that up there as one of the greatest captain moments in Star Trek history.
Wow, look at you going out on a limb there.
I will, because
I think Star Trek listeners and fans are going to pelt you with rocks.
Because if you think about it,
limbs.
Go through all the captains.
They're going to throw their ganglia at you.
Even Archer. When you look at all the captains, what is their most defining moments? And
it's the way they interact with the crew.
It's their way they interact with their crew and rise above.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I wouldn't go as far as saying it's the greatest captain moment.
I don't think it's the greatest captain, but it's one of the greatest moments. Because I would actually put that up there in moments of Picard and Kirk.
I don't know. My favorite moment still with Kirk is I need my pain.
I need my pain.
I need my
Oh my
pain.
God, yeah. That was good. That was a really good, powerful scene.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on into the MU, Georgiou, and Burnham and how they work together to get what they both want. I like this for a lot of reasons, but it was a way for Burnham to have a chance at some type of redemption. That was what the writers were angling for, giving her that bit of closure. And they have been giving her closure throughout the last, 4 or 5 episodes, ever since we came back from the mid-season break.
A little bit and a little bit.
And I feel like, and I'm happy that they didn't just give her closure in one episode. That they're kind of, it's an escalation.
Yeah,
it's not as finite each episode. There's a little bit that she gets with each passing moment, and this episode was just more of that. And her decision to save Georgiou rather than watching her die again in battle, I understand it. I mean, it was a great moment. The emotional catalyst and everything that followed, I think it made perfect sense. And it was poetically charged to evoke emotions.
Yes.
But there was one thing I could understand. And it was, no, there was one thing I couldn't understand. Sorry, there's one thing that I couldn't understand. And it was her anger toward Lorca and all he's done to her. Burnham says, I can't forgive him, the manipulation, etc., etc., etc. But by my count, Lorca has done nothing but help Burnham. He gave her reprieve from a life in prison. He taught her to be confident with herself, and that context is key. He was teaching her pretty solid ideology to take care of herself, to worry about herself.
But in what means, though?
What did he
was it just for his end goal?
I don't think it was. I don't think we're ever going to get that answer now, but Lorca to me didn't seem as one-sided. He seemed like he truly cared about Burnham. So when she said, oh, I could never forgive him for all he's done to me, he didn't do anything. You would be rotting in prison, Burnham.
Honestly, I had a problem
with it. I understand her Federation ideals is what makes her make her decisions. I understand that. But the emotional anger she had, I don't know if I would be as upset, because I would look at the bigger picture and say, hey, you saved me from prison. Mm-hmm.
You have a good point, but however, now I'm going to do the flip side.
Okay.
For me, I understood her anger towards that, because at the end of the day, what it looks like, yeah, you're right. Lorca might have been, there's more to Lorca than what we may never know now. However, if by looking at just as a person on the outside, Lorca manipulated everybody.
Yeah.
And for me, that's just basically, I understand that anger. You just got your emotions built up to believe in something, and suddenly the guy goes, oh no, this has all been my plan.
I don't know.
And that would, I can understand that.
Look at his final goodbyes to the crew. He respected them. He told them that, hey, I have a spot open for you, but I know none of you will accept it. Yes, Lorca is a bad guy because he's from another universe. But
it's that tough moral decision.
And maybe it's because I liked him a lot. Yes, he's an indecent individual, but he's also a product of his environment. I feel like he's not as bad as they were trying to make him out to be.
Yeah.
Because when you look at what he did help the crew become stronger.
No, he did.
So
I mean, if you look at it, all those times we were talking a lot about that time when Lorca literally banded the crew together in that one episode. I can't remember. And he literally just picked up the crew and said, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this as a team.
Yeah. Now, Dave, if they find a way to connect him to the start of the Klingon War, then I understand the anger and I see where his manipulative ways was hurtful. If he was in some way responsible for the Battle of the Binary Stars, he arranged for Burnham to be the one to make contact with the Klingon, the light, the beacon, ancient artifact that was floating in Federation space. You know what? I get it. But if we don't have that connection, what was he really doing but trying to get home?
I agree with you. That's why I'm like going, the next 2 episodes are really key, because like they have to, honestly, if they go that route and say that this whole time Lorca has manipulated everybody, it could be a little far-fetched for me if not done correctly.
Yeah.
If it's done correctly, sure, A+, you got to pass.
The last 2 episodes matter, man.
The last 2 episodes are like the most important, because you have to put that nice cherry on top of everything of the story so that we can actually look at the series as a whole and go, okay, this was well done.
Because where do we go now? Meaning, okay, so we want to believe that, so you want us to believe that Lorca is this ultra evil, right? Okay. But now you bring Georgiou into the Prime universe. Now, is she going to stay? Is she going to be a part of this new thing? She's just as bad as
she's
Lorca.
Just as evil.
So if they expect us to start liking her, what's the difference with Lorca? What parallels, or what are you trying to say by that? I feel like if that ends up being the case, I feel like there's a contradictory message.
Yeah, because
Lorca's bad, but Georgiou is good.
The thing that I'm
even though she ate a poor Kelpian.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I'm like going, are they going to go the route that basically Georgiou has at least a code of honor? Because this past episode, that they kind of hinted at that with all of her statements that she does have her own personal code of honor.
I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm saying they need to work towards it. I'm not saying we can't get on the side of Georgiou. I liked her, but if you expect us to root for her in some way, I think it will fail, because you start going into this weird area of, well, Lorca's bad, but Georgiou's good. Well, when do you the lines are all blurred. So if they can kind of work us in that direction moving forward, that she does in fact have a certain code, which, yes, you're right, they have subtly establish that, but I feel like they need to work their way a bit more to that.
Yeah.
Now the timeline, what's going to happen? Is this something that can be made to work within Star Trek canon? David, this area within the timeline was chosen due to the mystique. Not
Yes.
a lot is known about this specific time. So there is room to do what they wish for the most part. It is a time that has been kind of left alone. And I'm not talking about the ancillary media like books. I'm talking about actually established canon mediums, television, movies. We don't know a whole lot. So they can dress this as to being a moment in history that actually happened in Star Trek canon, that this did in fact happen pre-Captain Kirk's 5-year mission, that the Federation was at the brink of destruction and the Klingon Empire had taken over. And then at some point they were able to push the Klingon Empire back. They can do that.
Yes.
But that's quite a feat in 2 episodes.
The only thing I took away from thinking about that, because it did dawn on me when we got to the very end of the episode, I was like thinking to myself, well, they still haven't explained in Star Trek how is it that we developed the neutral zone. The neutral zone was never even brought up, and we know that the neutral zone was established during this period. So I'm looking at this as basically, okay, how far did it was like 9 months?
Yes.
9 months that they got put forward in time. So 9 months the Klingons basically blitzkrieg the Federation. It is possible. Now the question becomes, does the Federation, is this where we get the neutral zone?
Yeah, or do they travel back in time to fix it? And I feel like if they do that, I mean, we're treading into dangerous Star Trek
travel.
It's a blight on Star Trek, and a lot of Star Trek fans hate it, because how many times are you going to go back in time, save those humpback whales, I mean, they've done it so many times. I just don't want time travel to be a part of Star Trek anymore.
I don't either.
Let's fucking leave it alone.
I don't want to go around the sun. Don't make me go around the sun again. I swear to God, if Burnham says we must go around the sun, and I'm going to go, nope.
That's science. If you go around the sun, you go back in time.
Back in time.
To the exact moment that you wanted to go.
and that's what I mean. It's like, I don't want them to go back in time like you. I mean, but that was the first thing that dawned on me. I'm like 9 months past.
Yeah.
Oh God, are they going to actually think we can do?
There be whales here, Captain.
There be whales here.
All right.
We can back in time.
We need to wrap today's discussion. David, give me your final thoughts in a nutshell because we're over by about 3 minutes. So go.
Final thoughts on this episode. This episode was really good. Not a negative on the series at all.
Yeah.
I honestly think that this was a solid B episode. It gets me really hyped for the last 2 episodes because now I thought they were going to carry the Mirror Universe to the very end.
Yeah, so did I.
So what the heck is the last 2 episodes going to be all about if the Mirror Universe, which was being touted as like the main thing of the entire series, okay, that's over with. We're now back in Prime and the Klingons have taken over. 2 episodes, that's a lot of storytelling to catch up on.
Yep. All right. So what's your grade?
I gave it a B.
All right. I give this episode a C+. It was a fun episode. The usual greatness was in it. Great acting, cinematography, visual effects. All of it is just top-notch work. Production design is just, it blows me away. How on point the wardrobe, the costuming, production design, and art department is week after week on this show. I would love, just because, the money guy in me, I would love to see the budget per episode and where the money goes.
That's an episode we can do just on its own.
Yeah.
Is the special effects and the costume
it's
design.
Just so much work. It's just
so
fabulous, and I love it. It's just beautiful. It's eye candy, and it's fun to watch this show. And it might have sounded, Dave, that this was a negative discussion a bit, and it wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be to ask questions, to pose questions. Now that we're coming close to the end, and to be objective about our discussions. So a C+ episode. I like what they're doing. I like where they're going, but there are potential pitfalls ahead.
There's whales.
The
whales
actions,
pitfalls.
yes, exactly. Spock's brother, for example. So stupid. Those types of pitfalls. All right. So action sequences, I've always liked the full effect phaser, vaporizing effect that they only have used a handful of times in Star Trek. It's always been disturbing imagery, especially for a young kid to see someone scream and then be vaporized. I remember as a kid watching the original Star Trek, watching the Star Trek movies. There was something unsettling about the full effect setting on a phaser when your body would be just vaporized. And I believe in some Star Trek movies, they get eaten from the inside and then it takes them out.
That was the thing about that hallway scene, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I like that they brought that back. And I know a lot of people scream violence. Oh, violence, potty mouths in Star Trek Discovery. It's horrible. But Star Trek's they have always used their imagery wisely, and it wasn't always fit for kids. As I said, some of the imagery in the movies were disturbing, especially when you had people's bellies being hollowed out by phaser fire, and then it just vaporizes their internal organs in their body, and they're screaming. Floating Klingon blood in Star Trek 6, just droplets. I mean, Star Trek violence to Star Trek's not new.
Transporter accidents.
Yeah. So I loved seeing the vaporization effect as well. I thought it was fun, and it wasn't as disturbing, honestly, as the earlier iterations of Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
But it was still cool, and it still had a similar effect. So, all right, that concludes this week's discussion. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you ever miss any part of this broadcast, you can always find us on Stitcher and iTunes. Just search Star Trek from the Holodeck. Also, don't forget, you can download the Rain Man digital app. It's an app for the network, and you can listen to all of our shows that we have on this network anywhere you want to go. You can also listen to this show live You get push notifications sent to you when we're about to go live. Star Trek from the holodeck, about to go live, and you can just push the little play button and listen to us from your app anywhere you're at. So I want to thank you, David.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody else. Yeah.
Live long and prosper.
I couldn't help but notice your pain. My pain? It runs deep. Share it with me.
End simulation.